Boy, was yesterday interesting. Now, this is regarding the Idaho 4 Moscow murders trial, or the hearing for motion in limine, part of Brian Kohberger's trial. And I'm going to give you my summarization of the first half of yesterday's 8 hours of footage. Now, they should be back in court today, I think. I'm not sure. I didn't get to the end of it, so I don't know if they're going to continue to today, but I know they had time slotted for the 10th as well. Now, for those who don't know what motion in limine means, it just is a pretrial hearing for criminal trials that is requests to preclude or exclude evidence from when trial actually occurs. So the first motion they went over was the use of terms murder, psychopath, and sociopath, which can be concerned as inflammatory evidence, and Anne stated State versus Ellington, which inflammatory phrases were used in that case, and it led to a guilty verdict. Now, she was saying that she's not worried about them using the word murder in like opening statements or throughout the trial. She's worried about like witnesses coming on the stand and then calling him a murderer or referring to him as such, and that would bias the jury, and or the other word terms, sociopath, psychopath, etc. She's also worried if people of influence, like police officers, are also asked questions where they label him as such. There's been other cases where they've shown that people in authority positions are more believable, and so if the jury is seeing a police officer use those terms to describe Brian, that could also cause bias against him and prejudicial proceedings. Now, the judge said that he doesn't need to, since he believes there's rules in place already for that, i.e. no misconduct by the state or the defense, and that he believes they will be followed. So this should be inherent, or there will be misconduct, and he won't stand for that. Now, Anne wants there to be an official order so that they have to follow that. Judge felt that that was irrelevant. Anne says it will sway jury using that inflammatory language, and this is more of a preventative motion. Now, the prosecution came back up and said defendant didn't provide specific examples of inflammatory or exceptionally inflammatory language, but they did, because it's murder, sociopath, and psychopath, but I digress. Thompson said that there was no basis for this motion and request for denial, tried to placate the judge, so when he came up, he was just basically reiterating what the judge had just said, and kind of like the teacher's pet vibe. The defense came back up and said that the exceptionally inflammatory, over-the-top, unnecessary language, they don't know how the state will try their case, but this is in order to prevent being tried with emotions. Judge really hit home that if they try to argue outside of closing statements, judge will admonish them in front of the jury, and that was a direct quote of what he said. He won't know inflammatory evidence until he sees it. So the vibe that the judge gave is that he's not going to do an official order not to use those terms. He said that trying to police what people say is a bit difficult because sometimes these terms are interchangeable, and he said that can lead to a trial dismissal if like someone accidentally says the word murder or sociopath or psychopath and there's been an official order not to use those words, then Brian can immediately file for a mistrial or dismissal of the trial, and he wants to avoid stuff like that happening. Like I said, that was just motion one. There's a lot going on, so make sure you hit that follow button because I will be taking you through step by step what happened yesterday, and throughout the entire day. It's going to be a multi-part series because there's a lot going on. But if you enjoy stuff like this and you want to listen to it, put your phone down, just listen to what I say. That always works too. Sometimes people can't sit there and watch a video for 10 minutes, but if you can, I love having you here, so appreciate it, and make sure you keep following along. The state also had a motion with regards to the same type of inflammatory language, stating like if the defense tries to say the state is trying to kill Brian Kohberger, that type of stuff, they don't want them using that either. And so the judge had the same sentiments. He's like, I'm not going to police word verbiage. He also said it was improper by counsel if they try to do stuff like that. Now the next motion, motion number 2, is 404B evidence, which is the traffic stop. Now, Miss Nassif got up and she said that she tried to start arguing about the DeSales paper. So Brian had done a paper in college that shows, and they were trying that she's concerned that the state is going to say that it shows he has knowledge of cleaning up a crime scene. And then she also tried to touch upon Amazon records, which showed self-authenticating relating to purchases. But the judge kind of stopped her there and said, like, well, this specific motion is about 404B evidence, which is the traffic stop. 404B is, and we'll get into that because he defines it. 404B is a prior act, a bad act, like other crimes, other wrongdoings. And so that is related to the traffic stop because technically that is breaking the law, right? But the Amazon records and the DeSales paper that he did are not essentially breaking the law or doing a criminal act by buying a knife on Amazon or buying, writing a paper about a crime scene and cleanup or whatever. That's not a criminal act. Him violating and not wearing a seatbelt and, speeding is breaking traffic laws, so therefore that is a crime in essence, and so that is a prior bad act, and so that's what they were relating to the 404B evidence, because when she was trying to argue the other two, he said, but that's him buying a knife and him writing a paper is not a prior bad act. It's not a criminal act to do those things, so I'm not gonna think about those things. Now, when it comes to the traffic stop, this happened on August 21st, 2022, prior to the murders, with a Deputy Duke, and he was stopped for not wearing a seatbelt, he being Brian, and speeding, I guess, and they're concerned that it brings in other acts more prejudicial. So, like, for example, it was in Moscow, it happened at night, it has a visual of the car, the seatbelts show, like, that he also didn't want to give his phone number, and then the officer made a comment about how he feels about people not doing that, and so those things can show that maybe he doesn't want to follow the law and maybe try to hide his identity. So those things, they can all add up to being like a prejudicial picture for the jury, and so they don't want the video shown of this traffic stop. They feel that the Deputy Duke could come up and be questioned or testify to the stop, but to actually show the video could cause more problems down the road and give a clear image of Brian's car, which when you look at the other, like the 1112 video or the Ridge Road videos, they stitched all these clips of this potential white car and tried to say it was the same vehicle. The videos are not very clear, and that's the problem, where this video is clear of Brian's car, and so that could cause prejudicial behavior from the jury, going, well, see, now I see his car, and look, it looks like the one in this other video where they stitch all these videos together when you can't even tell what car that is, to be exact about it. It also is one of the dates that Nicholas Balance had listed. He's the FBI special agent that did the tracking of his phone and the vehicle or whatever, and he listed August 21st as one of the dates that Brian was near the 1122 home. So that also could add to prejudicial behavior, and it will do more than the intention that the state is intending to do, which is just to identify him, his phone number, and his vehicle. There's all those other factors that will factor in the jury's mind, is what the defense is arguing. So the judge, Thompson got back up and he would just basically reiterate what the judge had already said. He keeps doing that. And then the judge said that the traffic stop may not use as evidence to jury. We'll look at the video. He's concerned with the interaction with the deputy creates unfair prejudice, and he is thinking maybe just to redact those parts. So if you like this, make sure you keep following, because that is just motions 1 and 2, and we are getting right into it. I hope that you guys enjoy this summarization of it. This is regarding the Idaho 4 Moscow murders, Brian Kohberger trial that is going to be happening in August. This was the motion in limine, the idea of trying to get rid of evidence and not have it in trial. So make sure you hit that follow button, and I will be back with the next part.